the HDFC Bank and the controversy that happened yesterday, where a senior executive was let go of or suspended after a video of him shouting on one of his colleagues went viral. Remember, he was not a customer, but a colleague within the sales team is what we're given to understand. From my limited understanding of Bengali, Avijit, I am told that a lot of expletives were hurled in that meeting, the video that we all saw, after which HDFC Bank woke up and has taken, some sort of measures to curb it. But I don't think it's going to put an end to the menace, because it is a culture within the sales team. A lot of banks, a lot of places where sales team, when not met with their target, are often harassed and treated the way we saw in that video.
Shweta, absolutely. I'll also add, it didn't begin there. It's not going to end there. And why single out the banks only? It happens almost in all sales forces in this hapless country. The employees are just picked up, they are hauled up badly, all sorts of expletives are used. I am not saying that all bosses, all team leaders use it, but under the sort of pressure that companies actually put their sales teams in, this is, I am sorry to say, a very common practice. And banks shouldn't be singled out. It happens in banks, it happens in insurances, happens in mutual funds, and not only in services, in all sorts of products. Whenever the selling function is involved, whenever there is a target, this sort of practice happens almost everywhere. Obviously, the personality factor does make a difference, right? So that definitely from boss to boss, from team leader to team leader, it actually makes a difference. But then again, we are all working under the same paradigm. There is no paradigm shift as long as you are selling and as long as you have a stiff target to comply with.
All right, Krishna, you remember we were discussing this story yesterday where on the surface it seemed relatively funny the way the video went out, but once we understood what was being said, it became dark and it became personal, to the point, I think, where we joked, thank God we are not in sales and thank God we are not in that team.
Oh, absolutely. But the point is that the message was larger, not just for the banking sector or in sales departments or anything of that sort. The larger message was about toxic workplaces. There was a recent survey that said that 86% of employees in India, according to a recent survey, are looking to resign from their jobs in the next 6 months. And a huge majority of them are resigning because of toxic bosses, toxic workplace culture. And that's across sectors, that's across functions in sectors. So, the larger message that story came out, is that that's going to be the end of that. Not only will you, if you are that toxic boss setting that toxic work culture, you will get fired immediately. That's a great lesson that people are learning, especially with that particular instance. And I'm hoping that will be the way forward for all toxic bosses. But also the fact that you're talking about a change in expectations from workplace post-pandemic. You're talking about people just coming back to office and still demanding hybrid work models where half a week at home, half a week work from home, half a week at the office. People are very still in two minds about how they're going to split time between the office and other things in their life. And at a time like that, there is absolutely no space for toxic bosses, that kind of behavior. That's the kind of behavior that kids are taught not to do when they go to school. And here you have somebody who I'm sure has kids who go to school behaving like in a manner that is unbecoming of, not just a corporate professional, but of a human being.
Mm-hmm. And it's important to also point out, Amit, the only reason we saw that this is happening, this has been happening. There is evidence, ample proof. People often talk about toxic work culture, but the only reason we got to see it is because there is a physical evidence to it. Somebody dared to put that video out, exposing the culture, not the person, because this is a culture specific problem, not a person specific problem. One way or the other, you have people around who feel that they can do it and get away with it, hence they continue to do it. But HDFC Bank there, making sure that you penalize such people so as to not let this sort of culture prosper, not help it grow and straight up give a message to everybody, to every employee working in an organization, that this is not okay.
And what is not okay, which is not a good practice, but I hope there is no internal inquiry at HDFC to find out who put that video out.
That is interesting.
And I hope that doesn't happen. Though that is not a good practice. What stays in a company should stay within a company. There are departments who take care of dealing with toxic bosses and removing toxic work cultures. But that is the other side of it, and I hope it doesn't happen. You said that somebody put the video evidence out. I hope he or she is not penalized.
Okay, I think Krishna wants to come in at this point.
Right. Yeah, I agree with Amit when he says it's interesting how that this video even got out. But that's what whistleblowing is all about. Whistleblowing, when you whistleblow, you're doing something wrong according to company's legal policy. That's what happens. So except that if there is no mechanism for whistleblowers, if there is no place for whistleblowers to approach to, these days social media seems to be the favorite place where everybody is whistleblowing. I'm not really sure. I think it's a gray area over there. But what I'm also hoping, as Amit was talking about, the person who was a whistleblower, is given a protection, and also this sort of encourages more people to come forward. Shweta, if you remember, we've seen these kind of videos happening in the edtech sector. We've had those videos for when the edtech sector was in a breakneck speed of growth. You had so many of these videos releasing about how these managers, were driving people for sales, in an inhuman way. My other question is this. Pushpal Roy is the boss, is the person that we're talking about, the one person we're talking about, where he's being demonized. But what about that person's boss? What about that person's boss?
Exactly.
Where does this chain begin? I think that's an interesting point to ponder upon as we discuss, how we can protect whistleblowers.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned, this is not a person-specific problem. This is a culture-specific problem where you penalize not an individual, but you penalize that culture, where you can get away with saying whatever you want to say to a junior and in fact be even rewarded later if your performance meets the expected target. So essentially, I think a good step there by HDFC Bank, and of course, hopefully other other organization, other workplace will also take some cue from it and crack down on toxic work culture. The essential debate here, the essential argument being that toxic work culture is absolutely a no-no.